Bentornati, auguri a Napoli. They are officially the Scudetto winners for the 24-25 season. On Friday night, it was decided after a relatively comfortable 2-0 win over Cagliari. I'm going to say very comfortable win over Cagliari. I think this was a performance, before I kind of go to you, Andrea, I thought this was a performance over the last couple of weeks. We've said that Napoli have been unconvincing. They've been edging it by one goal. They've been kind of limping over the line. This felt like a real title-winning performance in terms of just how comfortable it was and how confident they were throughout the game. Like, obviously, Cagliari had nothing to play for. It was very much attack versus defence. But I felt like there was a swagger about Napoli, that there was nothing that was going to let them... There was nothing that was going to get in their way on Friday, right?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest credit of all, because I feel like in these pressure moments they have kind of sunk a bit, and I think this obviously a game in which it could have happened as well. But it's the fact that they were confident throughout the game, didn't give Cagliari any chance of space in the final third, but also they didn't panic, because it did take a bit of time in the first half to get that first goal. So there wasn't any panic. They were very calm and collective, and they worked well with the goal. Politano on the right hand side was constantly getting the ball. They were knowing their kind of plays and stuff to get into the box, and it worked well. So again, it's credit to Conte to keeping them composed, but also the fact that they made it as easy as possible so that they can, get it over the line and celebrate. But yeah, for the neutral was a bit of a sucker punch, because it wasn't that if Cagliari got a goal. My question was if Caprilli was in goal, that would have been very controversial, and he done like a masterclass. That's another. He was injured apparently. I mean, less said about that, but yeah, I think that's the thing. The main thing is that they were able to do that is quite great for the team and for the manager as well. It shows how well they've done this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously there was a lot of bitter Inter fans that I was with on Friday night, and I was a bit more detached than them maybe. But there was a lot of talk about like where does this team go down in terms of like the greatest ever Serie A winners, or the great like how have we lost to this team? But I think there was a lot of bitterness there. Obviously, this isn't the greatest Serie A team we've seen, by of course not, but not every team can be. But I feel like throughout the season they have looked like, even when Inter were kind of a little bit clear and it was close, we've said all season it's Napoli's to win, really, and they have shown that they're consistently the best team in the league, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the key reason why they've won this. I think Inter throughout the season have dropped too many points in key moments. But for Napoli, I think it's just a group effort, that first 11 in particular. And I think the way they won this game was quite nice touch. The fact that Lukaku and McTominay were the two goal scorers, the two kind of key players that kind of went on to win this league for them. Lukaku's goals rolling back the years, the way he ran, that was incredible. We'll get onto that. But the way that this 11 has just stuck with it, and, losing Kvaratskhelia halfway through, they really had to stick with that team, and they were able to kind of get it through the end. So it's credit to them, because they didn't really have many options on the bench to come on. It really just had to work from the 11 they have. But again, McTominay once again just stepping up time after time. It's just unbelievable. And the finish for that goal, just world class. Just world class.
I know we say it every week now, and I feel like we're fully repeating ourselves, but like the amount of goals he scored in that style, because that's not the first time he's had that kind of finish. Like, obviously, like crashing into the box, those runs, we've seen that become a trademark of his now. But that kind of scissor kick or that finish back across his body has become a trademark as well. And he's just the momentum and the confidence that this guy has had this season. And for him to, like, the second he scored, like, I was in an Inter bar, like, it was all Inter fans. And the second we went, on Napoli scored, the whole bar turned around and went, McTominay, right? Yeah, it's McTominay. And they just straight away, they knew who it was and they knew it was game over. And all of it was just, there was no comments, like negative comments. It was just like, man, what a player that guy has been. What an impact he's had that season. And now, like, all day I've just been watching reels and stuff of like the celebrations and the trophy parade in Naples and stuff. And I could not be happier for the bloke who looks like he is having the time of his life. Down in Peroni's and singing songs to Di Lorenzo and stuff. It just, as far as like transfers go, is this one of the best transfers we've seen in the last couple of years in terms of how it's worked out for the player, how it's worked out for the club, like, and how it's had such a dramatic upturn in his career. He's gone from a kind of fringe player at United, a bit of a cult hero in terms of, he came through the youth system, but he was only ever getting impact goals or whatever, and all of a sudden he's become one of the best midfielders in Europe. Like, I can't think of a transfer that's been this dramatic off the top of my head now.
I would even go on to say the last 5 years. I really can't think in the recent future, but the recent past, sorry. But again, it just goes to show that the goals he scores is not just it; it's the fact that he can able to dictate the game as well, control the game, kind of link up with the team. He's just got some sort of aura about him as well. He's full of confidence, and he's just makes everyone around him better as well. And I think that's what's kind of been key for them as well. That he's been the catalyst for kind of revivals in games, but also being composed and controlling games, like we saw again in that game. He got the ball in deep he even got the ball very deep, controlled the game, handled the nerves really well when there was patchy moments in that game, and it just shows the levels of what this player has. But again, at Man United we didn't really see it because he was playing deep. He was kind of restricted in his role, but whereas Conte is just given this room. I don't know how he's seen this in McTominay, but he's seen that this guy can do more than just sit in the middle and be a box-to-box. He can do everything up to a number 10. So it's a credit to Conte as well, because I think that's what he does best. The amount of players he turns into absolute superstars. Like you could even go back in the day when he was the national manager and turn Giaccherini into like one of the best wingers at the time. Like I don't know how Conte does it, honestly. So again, credit to him as well. But McTominay for me again, best player of course of the season. But I could argue the last 5 years, I can't really think of one like him that made that much of a difference, because it's a complete change of a player. It's not that player we saw at Man United.
No, absolutely. From where he was to where he's been. Because I think a lot of people now would say, like, look, Kvaratskhelia coming into the league and revolutionising. But he was like a hot young prospect that people were quite excited about. I feel like McTominay, it just felt like, oh, United sold him for PSR. Let's see how this goes. Like, there was a little bit of hype around Kvaratskhelia. With McTominay, there was nothing. And I just feel like maybe that made it a bit more impactful, even though Kvaratskhelia has gone on to be, top 5 players in the world. I just think that sudden acceleration is just absolutely incredible. But we need to talk about the other goal scorer, and quietly had a very good season. Won his second Scudetto with his second team, as Lukaku does get the second goal. As you said, rolling back the years there, and every so often you see this flicker in Lukaku, and you see that past glory. How would you rate his season? Because I still feel like it's been a bit under the radar, but he's got 14 goals and 10 assists. Like, those are pretty decent numbers. Maybe I expect too much, but how would you rate his season?
I think it's a bit mixed, but I feel like, again, in this system, he is isolated a lot in this season. I think that doesn't help either. I feel like when he was at Inter, he had obviously Martinez next to him. You've got Çalhanoğlu behind. I think that Napoli, he's kind of need to be that guy to hold the ball up, bring players in. So he's had to add to his game, because that's not the way he plays. He's always playing back behind the goal and try and run in behind, like we saw with that goal, for example. But I think overall it's a pretty good season, considering the way he was clinical, the way he took his goals as well. He was very clinical, didn't miss many chances. Every shot he got pretty much were goals. But again, I think he added more to his game as well. And I think we saw a lot of maturity in Lukaku as well. I think that has been questioned over the years and the teams he's been at as well. But I think at Napoli, he's shown a lot of maturity in the way he was fighting for the team. Like, every little detail mattered, and he made the most out of it. So I think overall, I feel like there's an exciting kind of player still there and still able to, hit that prime that he's going into now, because he's in his late 20s now. He could definitely hit that prime further. So, and again, with that goal, we saw that the pace is still there as well. So it's just getting the best out of him. But I think, again, what credit to Conte, but also Raspadori as well. I think him being alongside him has been the crucial reason why Lukaku, these last kind of 5 games, 10 games, so on, has stood out even more. He just needed someone next to him, just to support him, and it's made a world of a difference. So, very impressed with Lukaku this season for sure.
Well, we always have love for Raspadori on this pod. We all love him, and I think you're absolutely right. Just giving them that someone to feed off and someone who can run up, like give him those runs to aim for as well. Just such a key role in that team. But we've talked a little bit about how Conte gets the best out of players, and you don't expect it. Someone this year, or someone this season in general, but again in this game he kind of stood out, got an assist. The centre-back Rahmani was kind of, along alongside maybe just a slight bit above like Juan Jesus in terms of the laughing at centre back ability in Napoli, like in terms of how is he still here, what is like they need to upgrade on him. But he's been outstanding all season, and it feels like another player that Conte's really just absolutely got the best out of. And alongside Oliveira, there's a kind of weird, unexpected partnership there because obviously they've dealt with Buongiorno being injured and in and out of the team. But I feel like Rahmani needs to get some flowers in terms of how he stepped up this year, right?
Yeah, definitely. There was heavy talk on that like you said, that it was going to get replaced, that they need someone better. I kind of felt at the time that was the right kind of feeling. But again, credit to Conte getting the best out of players. But I also think what was impressive as well is that he's had to be the leader of that defence because of obviously Borgiorno being out a lot and also, losing, Kim Min Jae beforehand and stuff. So again, he's had to step up and be that main guy, and he's done it really well. And there's quite a few players that have come in and just made a difference. Even if you look at Gilmour, when Lobotka's been out, Gilmour's been impressive. So they've been able to fill these gaps when they've had these injuries, these moments where they've lost players. So again, credit. You've got like David Neres, for example, when Kvaratskhelia went that initial period, David Neres was coming in scoring some crucial goals.
Yeah.
So I think they were able to kind of fill those gaps as and when needed. So again, credit to the manager, but also obviously the players that have come in and made a difference, waited for their turn to make a difference, and they've done it. And Rahmani again is one that's just been consistent, and I think a lot of Napoli fans are talking about him more now after this season. As well as they're obviously going to be talking about McTominay, I think he's been mentioned a lot, and I think that's really good to see. I think it was so under the radar the whole season. I think once we see, it's one of those things when you see the season finish, you're like, wow, actually, no, you know what, this guy was actually amazing. So it's a bit harsh, it's a bit like that on him, but he's deserved the praise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think every player will be getting their flowers today. I'm pretty sure the party's still continuing in Naples as we speak. But of course, it wouldn't be Napoli without a load of drama off the pitch. Obviously, De Laurentiis not to be outdone in the attention stakes, as it seems like him and Conte have had a falling out. We knew this was going to burn brightly, but for a very short time. It seems that Conte has already agreed to go to Juventus. It's all but done. He's a brave man, firstly, going from Napoli straight to Juventus, because I'm pretty sure the effigies will be out by tomorrow morning. But is this depressing news? Is it surprising? It kind of depresses me that he's just going straight back to Juve, and it'll be like, okay, Juve are going to win the Scudetto now, even though he actually has to do well in Europe next year. They're not going to tolerate a bad performance in the Champions League, I don't think. But do you think it's depressing that after 1 year he's just walked out of Napoli and going to Juventus? It just leaves a bit of a sour taste in my mouth.
Yes and no. I think it does in the sense that, what he's achieved, and, Kevin De Bruyne potentially coming in, like there could be room for actual big signings coming into Napoli this window coming up. But again, I think it's just more that Conte's done this so many times. And again, he's a manager that hasn't really lasted more than 2-3 years because he's just very demanding in what he wants. And perhaps again at Juventus, he sees a bigger potential in terms of squad, the young squad they have at Juventus, and the kind of bigger squad they have at Juventus as well. So I think on that kind of surface, it makes sense, but I still think like it could just go back to De Laurentiis again. He's not the first manager has had an issue with, but it's a shame because if Conte's backed, he could really make a foundation at Napoli to kind of build and win the next kind of couple more Serie A titles. So it's a shame, but I feel like it's a chance for Conte to try and get that opportunity again at Juventus, because I think if we look at last time he was at Juventus, when he left, he really wanted certain signings. In the end, Juventus actually got those signings. So again, I think if he's been told that, you're going to have time and you're going to have those signings you want, I think that's where it's like, and this is his team at the end of the day, his main team. I feel like for him, it feels like a second opportunity to actually do what he wanted to do when he done that amazing run, winning those titles, but not being able to get into Europe because he wasn't backed enough. That's where I think he looks at it and goes, he can make that difference and maybe challenge for further trophies. Because at Napoli, perhaps he just thinks, I don't think I can win more than Serie A at Napoli, which is a fair assessment. But I don't know what you think. I think that probably is the reason why he's looked at it.
Yeah, I think obviously the fact that he's Juventus and he's, ex-club captain and ex-manager and so intrinsically tied to that club, right, is obviously part of it. But I think we're now looking at a team that have won 2 titles in 3 years, that despite all the chaos off the field, they are still kind of sustaining success. I think people forget that year in the Champions League where they just absolutely shat the bed against Milan in the quarterfinals, I think it was. Up until that run, people were talking about them like they could have won the Champions League. Like, I don't think Napoli, it's beyond the realms of possibility that with a bit more investment and a bit more patience, Napoli could be challenging for European titles, because you're winning league titles, you're breeding a winning culture. I think you just need to decide who your manager is going to be and stick with it. Like,
Yeah.
this will be 5 managers in 3 years or something daft now, right? Between Spalletti, then Mazzarri, then I'm going to try and remember them all. Then they had that weird guy, I've forgotten his name now, who was like the Slovakian manager, was it? And then now Conte. And then if De Laurentiis finds someone that's willing to tolerate him, I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that they can go on and win bigger stuff. Maybe it's asking a lot for Conte to actually stay anywhere for a long time. But I'm a little bit disappointed they didn't try and build something here, because I think obviously Napoli fans will be enjoying the Scudetto win, and absolutely they have the right to, but it must be really fucking annoying that every time you win the league you see the whole thing fall apart and you see the whole thing sold off immediately. And obviously De Laurentiis, just anything that means he's not the main headline is always going to be a problem. So that being said, the name that is being linked to the job, and I was talking to somebody today about this, is, well, it's Max Allegri. He is the favourite to take over. I think he is the sensible and stable choice in terms of kind of bringing a bit of calm to this team. But sensible and stable doesn't sound very Napoli. Like, do you think this is a decision gets made? How do you think this will go? Because he's someone, again, who could win the title with them next year quite easily.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move if they do go for it. I just think similar kind of philosophy to Conte, really, the style of play, the similar formation. But on top of that as well, maybe it's a bit of calmness they need, a bit of someone that, like you said, they've had managers that have done amazing and leave straight away. He's someone that likes to build kind of for future years ahead. So I think that's something that could work really well for Napoli. And again, he's a winner. He's won trophies. Like, no matter the football, he's won trophies. And I think for Napoli, that's all that matters. They want to continue that success that they're having. And I think it's a kind of a smart move because it doesn't really change the stylistic play of Napoli too much either. So, and obviously they've got a manager with so much of Serie A experience, which again will be crucial. And like you said, he could challenge for Serie A with the team and a few more additions. So, and he's someone that probably won't complain too much compared to Conte when it comes to transfers either. He'll recognise what he has and try and work with it much more than probably Conte would as well. So maybe that's a side of thing that ADL likes, the fact that he doesn't have to have arguments about other transfers.
But do you think, I think you're absolutely spot on, do you think that the style of football will be an issue with the fans? Like, do you think the fact that his football isn't the most entertaining, it's not the most swashbuckling, right? Do you think that will be an issue? Do you think the fact, because I feel like in Napoli they do want aggressive, fast, attacking football, right?
Yeah, I think it's a bit mixed. I think because they're a team that hasn't been, had long-term success, they've always had those short stints of wins. And, I think that's what kind of they might kind of feel like, if he can guarantee us more trophies in the next 5 years, I know the football might not be the greatest, but if it's getting us trophies again and keeping us consistently at the top, attracting top players like De Bruyne coming in now, then I think they won't complain. However, I think the style of kind of like the wingers they have, they haven't really set up. They're not really set up for it at the moment. So I think that for that reason, I think Allegri's like the preferred choice, just because of what they have, and kind of like 2 up front is what they kind of want to work with. But I think for Napoli to get to that back to that stage, there's a lot of more kind of squad building needed to get to that kind of attacking stage again. I think the squad at the moment is too built for that 3 at the back system. They'll need another 2-3 years to probably transition to that kind of different formation. So I think just because of long-term success, they'll take it as long as they can guarantee it with Allegri, which they could do. So I think it's worth it.
Exciting times maybe at Napoli if they win trophies, maybe not on the pitch. But yeah, I think Allegri, it seems again that one is kind of done. I think it's kind of been agreed. They're just letting the party end before they announce it. But huge moments for Napoli fans to look back on across this season. Of course, the 2-1 turnaround against Milan, the 1-0 win over Inter, which was definitely the 6-pointer where the kind of the scales tipped a little bit. A huge win in Rome with a 3-0 win there, and the second Scudetto in 3 years. Unbelievable. Like, Andrea, last year, They finished 10th. They're the first team to finish 10th and go on to win the Scudetto. Did you think, I know when Conte came in, but I still didn't really expect them to get it done and there to be such a big turnaround. It is, we have to just say, like, pat on the back for Conte, right?
Yeah, I think Conte always had a chance to challenge just because it's him. We saw it at Chelsea. It just makes you think of Chelsea at the time when he did it. He took over Chelsea when they were 10th, I think similar position, and won the league the season after. So he's got that winner mentality in him. But again, I think because of the squad Inter have, Juventus should have done a lot better. Milan should have done a lot better. I think it's credit to them, to Napoli and Conte, that they actually did achieve it, because I still think Inter should have got over the line with the squad depth they had. But in the end, Napoli done well. But yeah, I think it wasn't a realistic thing that they were going to win it, but somehow they've overcome that. So it's definitely credit to Napoli.
Well, auguri ancora Napoli. Unbelievable scenes in Naples today. I love that city. I love the city. I love the culture. It's just incredible. Elsewhere on Friday night, very quickly, Inter did get the job done. They did beat Como 2-0. It was possibly the most boring second half I've ever seen in my life, as everybody just realised the game was completely meaningless. But the headline moment, in his final game in his footballing career, Pepe Reina was shown a red card. Now, Andrea, I thought this was a ludicrously soft red card. How did you see that one?
It's harsh, but it's one of those ones where they in Serie A they give it. I'm not too shocked either. But yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was harsh. I think considering the moment, considering that Inter were probably going to end up winning that game, it didn't matter for Inter anyway. You kind of feel as like you'd want the referee to kind of ignore that and try and, for the neutral, for the player. But no, it's just, and you could see like the family crying in the stands and stuff. I'm like, this is what you wanted, referee, for the most decision that meant nothing anyway in the end, in the context of things. So it's a sad ending, but I agree with you. I think it was super harsh.
Yeah. Look his child in the eyes before you give him that red card. I thought honestly, even in the pub, everyone was just like, whoa, how has that been given? Like, fair play. But yeah, such a non-event. It was kind of the funniest thing ever, I'm sorry, was Correa finally scoring for Inter and it looking like it was an important goal. And then at the exact same second, I think McTominay scored for Napoli. And all the Inter fans were like, Correa! And then it was just like, oh, the guy's useless. Like, even when he scores, it doesn't make a difference. There were so many Inter fans who were giving him a one-finger wave after the game. I think they're pretty sick of that guy, but it was quite nice to see him get a goal. It's a really well-taken goal as well. That's the first bit of quality I've seen from him in about 2 or 3 years, I think. Unbelievable. But yeah, stranger things have happened. I suppose in the race for Europe, we're going to go down to, well, the inevitable happened, but they did make a pretty big job of it. Juventus 3, Venezia 2. Fila scoring in the first minute. And then, well, Andrea, at the top, you talked about Caprile not playing because he was on loan. Well, fans of conspiracy theories, the player who gave away the penalty for Venezia is on loan from Juventus. He gave away the penalty that made them win 3-2. This is the typical fight that we've seen Venezia over the last couple of weeks. I think we can talk about them. But for Juventus, it was purely about just getting the job done. But this really wasn't a convincing performance at all.
No, and I think throughout the 90 minutes, it was not convincing at all. Even though they got the win in the end, I think it's quite concerning, but it also shows that Tudor perhaps isn't that guy going forward. And I think that was going to happen anyway, but I think that game just summed it up. But I think the main thing for Juventus, of course, is that they just got the job done. I don't think they really deep down cared. They just wanted the job done. They needed Champions League football again to save this team from, more issues in the future. So it was a crucial win. At the end of the day, they're still playing a team who are fighting for relegation. So it's one of those games where anything could happen as well. But yeah, it wasn't convincing at any moment whatsoever. And again, a lot of players that they, Dusan Vlahovic now, there's a lot of question marks on players. So it's a big kind of window ahead for Juventus as well coming up.
What I found really concerning was the fact that every time all Venezia had to do was hit the ball into the flanks, and Juve were just completely turned around. And when you've got the wingers like Yeboah and even Haps played really well in this game as well, and then Zerbin on the other wing, all they had to do was just run, and Juve were in utter chaos. There was zero defensive shape at all. Now, obviously, we've talked a lot about Lloyd Kelly and these players that aren't particularly of the level, but I found it just really, Juve need a big summer. They need a very, very big summer. And what do you think about the penalty decision? I'm still not convinced. I think it was like a lazy, threw a leg out, but Conte was definitely looking for it.
Not a penalty at all for me. I think,
okay.
I think he's got away with that one. I just think, again, it's just one of those ones where I think that there needs to be a more look at, is the player going to fall down from this contact? And for me, answer for me is no. The player could easily stayed on his feet. I think that should be enough to then say that it's not a foul. Even if you're unsure about the contact in itself, is it enough for the player to go down? And for me, it wasn't. And I think, I think a lot of Juventus fans would agree that it wasn't a penalty. I think it was very, very harsh. And again, just because he stuck his leg out a little bit, it looked like he was sticking it out, but he brought it back in. So it's one of those again. But very harsh. I don't think it was a penalty.
Yeah, I think they need to be a little bit stricter on is the player already going down before he's touched, which is quite easy to say. And does the player throw himself into the tackle? So obviously, I'm coming at this from an Arsenal angle, but I remember in the Champions League semi-final last year, Arsenal didn't get a penalty because Saka threw himself into Neuer, right? And they were like, and he absolutely did, right? And they were like, it's not a penalty. Saka threw himself into the player. I think we've seen a few in Serie A this season as well. Obviously, it wasn't given, but the David Neres one last week as well, where he threw himself into the player. I think there needs to be a bit more consideration around that. And okay, because he was just blatantly looking for that penalty. And as you said, the defender did pull his leg back, just not being quite quick enough. But we do have to wave farewell to Venezia. They put up a real fight. I don't know if Di Francesco is ever going to be able to keep a team in the league, but they've been, as the season's got on, you have seen them improve. You've seen the football improve. You've seen the quality increase. Do you think they stick with him and he brings them back up? I really want him to get another chance at this.
I think he's earned the chance to stay for the next season. I think like you said, I think the second half of the season in particular, we've seen some clear improvement. And there's a core of players there that most likely will stay as well. So again, and they've got some young players in that team as well that are really standing out. I think the only difficulty is them coming straight back up is in Serie B is always difficult. They end up doing the opposite and getting relegated lots of teams. So it's a bit of a yo-yo situation there. But I think certainly for Di Francesco's sake, he deserves to stay. I think he's done enough to earn. If he wants to stay, he deserves another chance to stay in Serie B.
No, absolutely. And I think there's a few players at Venezia that could be poached this year, though. I think in the summer there's going to be a few that will be picked up. Obviously, the ones that have stood out to us, I think, or to me, Odistiano, who came on late in this game, but I think throughout the season has been very good. I think Yeboah, as the season's gone on, has been very exciting. So I think there's a few players that could be picked up, but hopefully they manage to keep hold of most of them or the majority of them. Because as you said, there are some good, young, exciting players there. And I really thought they just scored too early. They just scored too early. When it was the first minute, I was like, I like your spirit. I like what you're doing. But it should have been the 89th minute because there's no way Juve throw this away from here, right? It just felt a little bit inevitable.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's the inexperience of the situation as well, not, managing the game. It's a lot of things that come to it. But I think it's a difficult way to approach the game when you take that lead because they weren't going to change their style, but Juventus were just going to intensify their play as well from that moment onwards as well. So, and I think, ultimately it's just one of those where, it was too early.
Yeah, it wasn't going to happen. The Colomwani goal was really well taken as well, I have to say that. Now, we've talked about Conte leaving from a Napoli point of view. Let's kind of quickly talk about Conte arriving from the Juve point of view. He does have a big job on his hands. He is going to have to spend a lot of money, but he is going to have to compete in the Champions League as well, and the expectation is going to be a little bit higher. So I don't think this is going to be as simple as walking in and winning the Scudetto with Juve. Do you think he's ready for a project? Do you think he's ready for this? Okay, dig in, this might take a while, because this squad is some way off challenging for the title.
Yeah, it's one of those where the Juve need that, and secondly, Conte needs to do it at some point, because he can't be just going jumping at every job he get that comes around.
He's going to run out of clubs eventually.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's because it's like now he's got bad blood with Inter. Now he's got bad blood with Napoli. He can't go back anymore. It's like he'll end up having like red zone clubs out, that he can't go back to. So he needs to stay and try and commit. But again, it's his team. He should feel more connected if he's getting backed as well. But like you said, I think with Juventus, there's a lot of change needed. And again, Conte can make players good. He might make Lloyd Kelly really good. We don't know.
He's done it with Rathmani. I'm going to put my neck out there.
Might sign Juan Jesus on a free or something as well to kind of shore it up.
Just to show off. Yeah.
But I think it's a massive summer ahead. But again, I think as much as Conte's been a brilliant manager in his career, what's kind of been his downfall is managing Champions League with Serie A. The amount of times he's just got out last 16, very bad kind of runs he's done.
Even some group stage exits.
Group stage, yeah. So again, that's something he needs to manage well, because he's quite stubborn in not changing his 11, and then that obviously affects the longevity of the players in the season and challenging on all fronts. But that's something he needs to adapt to. So that's the big challenge as well, because at Napoli it was one game a week. That's why he had more of a chance, to rest and But Juventus, it's like you said, they're expected to do well. They want to do well in Champions League. They want to do well in Serie A. So he's got a lot of pressure as well coming into it. Even though he's a winner and he's just won the league, huge amount of pressure to deliver at both fronts, especially in the Champions League as well, to show a convincing. Because again, this season for Juventus was absolutely atrocious in the Champions League.
Yeah, just awful
Yeah.
season. Awful season.